The Rangers lost in a slugfest, but something that might have been lost in the offense is something this team is doing that sluggers in Texas have not done for over a decade. We're going to get into all of that and a little bit of look ahead at this final road series of the season. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Friday, September 30th. Your Rangers are 66 and 89 after a mind-numbing, frustrating, of course, 1-run loss in Seattle, their final game in Seattle on the season. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now, let's get into that absolutely wacky slugfest, just wild game of baseball last night. The Rangers lost 10-9 in 11 innings, and of course in one of their final road trips of the season. Of course it's on the West Coast. Of course it's against the Seattle Mariners team, a team which the Rangers have lost so many games to and so many close games to as well. It ends in an 11 inning 1-run loss. It was number 33 of the season. The Rangers are 14 and 33 in 1-run games this year. That is a winning percentage of 29.8%. And against Seattle, they finished the season 5 and 14. Good freaking riddance. They have a minus 17 run differential against Seattle specifically. So again, there have been a lot of 1-run losses, and a lot of them have been in Seattle. This team has just not done well against the Mariners this year. They have a good squad, but like the Rangers just really have not been able to do anything against them or against Oakland. That is exactly this, or against Houston. I mean, they have been able to beat up on Oakland, and the Angels as well, which is, it's very thankful that the Rangers have a series against the Angels in this final week of the season, because finishing up with 7 out of your last 13 games being, or 7 out of your last 10 games being against playoff teams is just not good. They have done well against the Angels. They've done well against the Angels on the road. So hopefully they can score some wins and pad their win total just a little bit before a 4-game series at home against the Yankees to close out this season. But this was a thrilling game. The Rangers took the lead pretty early in this one. They were able to get up in the 4th inning. They had a 4-run 4th inning with a trio of home runs, one from Sam Huff, which was the hardest hit ball of the night. I don't know if it was the farthest. According to StatCast, I believe that said that it was not quite the farthest hit. Mitch Haniger's 442-foot bomb was the longest hit of the night. I do think that Nathaniel Lowe's could rival it. It was listed at 398, which is, there's no way that's right. There's absolutely no way, because that thing was at least 10 to 12 rows back in right field. Sam Huff's was definitely the hardest hit ball. You could tell right off the bat it was an 89-mile-an-hour fastball right down the heart of the plate. And Sam Huff, who has been shortening up his swing and, trying to spray the ball to all fields, be a more complete hitter. When he lets into one, that guy has got top of the scale raw power, and you could see it. And it was just a fantastic call by Dave Raymond. He said, "Boy, this ball is just crushed to center field." Kelnick is going back, and I don't know why that ball is gone. Just absolutely beautiful. A lot of times, guys will hedge their bets when they're calling a home run, even if it's pretty much a no-doubter off the bat. Dave Raymond is usually on the more conservative side with home runs, but 109 miles an hour off the bat of a meatball like that from a guy with that top of the scale power, he knew that thing was long gone. It didn't go as far as I thought it would. I mean, granted, it was a nice play by the Mariners fan in center field who made the catch on that. Just very casual. I think they had a glove on, but it was just a really casual little basket catch. Like, no big deal. Here's this just absolute rocket shot hit right to me. And Sam Huff really needed that one. He has not let his power show quite as much at the big league level this season. It showed off quite a bit at AAA this year, but in the big leagues, it just hasn't translated as much. It's seen better offensive numbers. His batting average is a little bit better than I thought it would be at 250, and the on base is a little bit better at 311 than I thought it would be. But his OPS is 695 because he only has 4 home runs in 112 at bats on the season. Still looking a lot better as of late. In his last 7 games, he has a pair of home runs, 4 walks to 8 strikeouts. Strikeouts are always going to be a thing with him. That's fine. That's fine. He is a guy who is a legitimate catcher, but also 6'5" and 240 pounds. He is a big dude who has got big power. In those 7 games, he's hitting 250, then on base 357, and slugging 542. That is the Sam Huff that the Rangers know and love, and that they are hoping to get more of next year when I'm assuming he's going to play a little bit more. It's going to be a real puzzle to see where he plays, how often he plays. I thought he'd play a little bit more with Jonah Heim really running out of steam at the end of the year, but they brought in Kevin Plawecki to play in this one. But we did see Sam Huff DHing in this one, and I think that's a good sign. We'll see probably a little bit more of it, a little bit of a defensive shift here. Plawecki was catching. Josh Smith played a second game. We had another game where Corey Seager missed because of that really bad bruise on his arm that he sustained. Still not on the IL. I still haven't seen any updates on him. I think he's going to play when they come back home. Maybe he'll get into 1 or 2 games in this Angels series, but there's not really much of a point in risking it. When he feels healthy enough to play, he'll play, and I'm looking forward to that. But his middle infield partner, Marcus Semien, had himself a freaking day. A pair of home runs for him in this one. He is up to 26 on the season. He passed, well, he would have passed if not for the other home runs hit in this one. The Rangers are fighting neck and neck for that second spot in the home run total. I don't think any of them are going to pass Corey Seager, who has 32 home runs on the season. But heading into this one, Marcus Semien was just one shy of the 25 homer mark. He hit that in the 3rd inning. Also got a shot from Adolis Garcia in the inning. 3 home runs in the 3rd inning in this one. And then Marcus Semien added another one in the 7th, and also got a massive shot from Nathaniel Lowe, which was his 26th on the season. Now Semien, and Adolis Garcia are all tied for 26 home runs. And we're going to look at when was the last time the Rangers had 4 players who hit 25-plus home runs, a little bit more at this game, the frustrations of the pitching in this one. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. That's right, BetOnline is your #1 online source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every single game you can find. If you wanted to bet on the Cowboys this week, if you wanted to bet on some college football that's coming up this weekend, there should be a lot of fun games to go check out the action there. You've got my alma mater, Texas Tech, heading up to a ranked Kansas State. That should be a fun matchup in the early slot on Saturday morning. Or, you can, if you're a Texas fan, you're feeling like they're going to rebound after a tough week, a tough loss at the hands of Texas Tech. Absolutely delightful game of football last week. Then you can go make your bets known there in Arkansas and Alabama game. That's also going to be a lot of fun. It's the fastest and easiest way to check on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. If you want to bet on a playoff team that is not the Rangers, you can head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, the Rangers pitching obviously did not quite hold up in this one, because it wasn't just the Rangers who were mashing home runs. There were a lot of home runs from the Mariners side as well. The Rangers hit 5, the Mariners hit 4. All of them came from just 2 hitters. 2 from Mitch Haniger, his 8th and 9th, one off of John Gray, and the other also off of John Gray in the 1st and 3rd innings. Jared Kelenic, who I was talking about wanting very badly, and made me look smart for saying, hey, the Rangers should go get this guy if they could buy low. The Mariners are probably not going to sell low on this guy. He is a really darn good baseball player. He's had some struggles at the big league level. I mean, his overall numbers reflect that. He's got a 579 OPS after this one, but still had a multi-hit game, reached base 3 times and scored 3 runs, drove in 3 runs because he had a pair of home runs. One was off of John Gray, and the other was off of Brock Burke, a lefty, hitting a home run off of Brock Burke. That is not something you see a whole lot, and that was the only hit that Brock Burke, the only base runner that Burke gave up in his 2 innings of work, also had 4 strikeouts. John Gray was pretty much lit up in this one. 5 innings, though. He was able to go deep into this game. Got a little bit in trouble with the walks, 3 of them for him. 6 runs, all were earned. 3 home runs and 8 hits allowed. Those things were sailing over the fence. Matt Moore was able to work a perfect shutout innings. Jonathan Hernandez was able to work a shutout inning as well. But when it came to extra innings, the Rangers, again, were sunk. They are 6-9, which is nice, but also not nice in extra inning games this year. Just not able to get it done with those zombie runners reanimated from the dead. It has been a real problem for this team. The Rangers took the lead twice in extra innings. They took the lead in the 10th, they took the lead in the 11th, but they were only able to get the 1 run in, and John King in the 11th inning was just not able to get it done. He allowed 1 run that was earned, 3 hits, just could not even record an out. Jose Leclerc at least got through his inning of work. He allowed a walk and a hit to score the run and did get a strikeout, but still was not able to seal that 1 run win, which is what you want from your closer in those extra innings. The Rangers used Dennis Santana a whole lot in those situations early on, and he had some success, but since he kind of fell off a cliff, it has not been pretty for the Rangers in extra innings. They've been able to score. They've always been able to score that 1 run with that zombie runner, but they have not done a great job of being able to build and score multiple runs. They did that a few times in Chicago against the White Sox. That was a really, really good series for them. But outside of that, it's been really, really inconsistent from the pitching staff being able to limit those zombie runners. It is a difficult proposition, and I still really don't like the rule, and I don't know if the Rangers would be doing much better if there were no zombie runner rule. But still, they have been so horrible in 1 run losses. You have to think in extra innings, zombie runner, no zombie runner, it would still be a difficult time for them trying to get ahead of that. But overall, offensively, it wasn't just the home runs that were hitting. Josh Young had a pair of walks. The Rangers worked 4 walks, and this one from Sam Huff, one from Mark Mathias, who also had a hit, playing left field and hitting 5th in the lineup. Cole Calhoun came in a big spot in extra innings and drove in a run in his one at bat, pinch hitting for Mathias. Really good day for him offensively. And Bubba Thompson was yet again a total bench on the bases. A pair of hits for him, ended up scoring a run as well. Lily Tavares in a pinch running situation, I believe that was in extra innings, as a zombie runner was able to score a run as well, and a hit and a run scored for Josh Smith, hitting 9th and playing shortstop. But let's look overall offensively at what the Rangers have done. Home run hitting has been something that the Rangers have done really, really well. I thought they would have five guys who'd be hitting 20 home runs this year, but Jonah Heim has really fallen off in that second half. I believe he only has 3 since the All-Star break. I'm pretty sure he was at 12, and he is at 15 now. Unless he hits 5 in the final few games of the season, I don't see that happening. Or if Cole Calhoun gets 8, also can't say that I see that happening. Or if Lily Tavares hits 16 in the final 2 series. I can't say I see that happening. I don't think that's a reasonable thing to ask. Or maybe Josh Young hitting 15 in the final 7 games. Maybe that's more likely than some of the other ones. But still, not a whole lot of prospects for somebody else to jump up there into that 20 homer mark. But still, the Rangers haven't had a lineup this deep with this many home run threats in several years. The last time that the Rangers had even 3 players with 25 plus home runs was 2017. You had Joey Gallo, who hit 41 home runs that year, Rougned Odor, who had 30, Mike Napoli, who was playing first base that year, had 29. And yeah, that was the only 25 home run hitters. They were a little bit deeper in terms of the 20 mark. They had 6 different players hit 20 home runs that year. That's right. There was also Shin-Soo Choo, who had 22, Mazzara, who had exactly 20, and Elvis Andrus' 20 homer season. That was a really, really unexpectedly great year offensively for Andrus, and has not quite been the same player since. Just that that hit by pitch really changed him, and it's an absolute bummer thinking about what would have happened if that never happened to him. He'd probably still be a Ranger. He'd still be putting up some really great offensive numbers. It seemed like he had turned a corner, but I digress. The last time the Texas Rangers had four or more players with 25 home runs like they do this year was 2011. Not even that 2012 lineup. They were close. They were real close, but no cigar. In 2011, they had Adrian Beltre leading, tied with Ian Kinsler. Both had 32 home runs. Mike Napoli had 30 as a catcher that year, which was just nuts. Nelson Cruz had 29 despite missing a whole bunch of games. And Josh Hamilton had 25 despite missing a whole lot of games. That was, I don't know if that, I think 2012 was probably the best team that the Rangers put together, but offensively, it's hard to argue that in the 21st century that this is their best offense. 2011. I mean, 2012 was really close. It was a little bit better season from some other key guys, but Ian Kinsler had a really down year. He didn't have the 30 home run mark. Beltre had what I think was his best year with the Rangers with 36 home runs and a 921 OPS. David Murphy had that breakout season. Josh Hamilton had the 40 homer season. Nelson Cruz was healthy the full season, but only had 24 home runs. Not quite the same level of depth that they had mashing and bashing the year before. But still, Mike Napoli with 24 bombs out of the catcher spot is still a really nice thing to have. That 2011 team was incredibly deep, and having four 25 plus homer players is nothing to scoff at. These guys they could have very easily, if Heim had kept up his production, I think he was about on 25-ish homer pace. And so this is nothing to scoff at. If they had a healthy Mitch Garver, they probably would have had the five guys with 25 bombs. But Garver had 10 in just 54 games, and he wasn't even healthy for most of the time he was playing. So this is a really good squad. This is a really deep offensive team, and this is why I don't think there's a whole lot of need to go after offensive players next year. Maybe you'd like one or two more guys, but you're looking at your lineup next year, and I think it looks kind of similar to what a healthy lineup this year looks like, except with the addition of Josh Young probably hitting in fifth. You've got your 1, 2, 3 guys in your infield. You've got Simeon, Seager, and then Lowe. That seems pretty established. Who's going to hit cleanup? I'm not exactly sure. I think it's probably going to be Adolis Garcia, but it could very easily be Mitch Garver. I could even see it being Josh Young. It's not entirely out of the question. Then one of those two guys is hitting in the 5 hole, and then you put Jonah Heim as your 6th best hitter, and you have one of Bubba Thompson or Leody Taveras in the 8 and 9 holes, and whoever is out there in left field or whatever position that I haven't yet named, or maybe my math is just wrong. But that's a pretty deep lineup. That's a pretty talented lineup with a diverse set of skills, and that should be very encouraging to Rangers fans as to what the future is going to look like next year. A lot of bright spots, and even Sam Huff, if there's not a whole lot of Mitch Garver to be seen because he continues to struggle with injuries, then Sam Huff is a really great name to plug right in there as your second thought DH slash backup catcher. That's a really powerful bat to have in there. So there's a lot of bright spots to look for in this offense next year and in the years to come, because most of these guys are going to be here for quite a while. Coming up, we're going to look at this series against the Angels, the final road series of the season, and of course it's on West Coast time, and some key guys who have come back for this Angels squad at not a great time for the Rangers, but great to see them back on the field. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, the Rangers face off against the Angels this weekend. They're going to throw Glenn Otto on Friday night versus Reed Detmers. On Saturday, it's going to be Cole Reagans versus Jose Suarez. And it's probably going to be some combination of Jesus Tinoco and some other guys, Tyson Miller probably. We saw that in the first game of the series against Seattle. So that's probably what they're going to roll out in the Sunday game against the Angels. Now, Mike Trout is back, and he is back with a freaking vengeance. He had just come back off the IL and was really hitting his stride the last time the Rangers faced him. He is having a down year for him, which is a 979 OPS, an all-star season, 38 home runs. Just It's just unreal. It's absolutely unreal that they have this guy, and he's not even the best player on his team. Shohei Ohtani is at 9.8 baseball reference WAR, has played in 151 games this year, has 31 homers and 888 OPS, despite a really down first month of the season where his bat was almost literally on life support. He was literally doing CPR to it after about a month into the season, and his frustration with his own offensive shortcomings, if you will, which, he has really turned that around this year. He's got a better batting average than he did last year. The slugging and the on base are down just a little bit compared to where they were last year. And the stolen base numbers aren't quite where they were last year either, as are the home runs. But he had 8 triples last year, 6 this year. It's really easy to forget that he's also incredibly fast because you're thinking, oh, this guy is probably the strongest hitter in baseball and one of the best pitchers in baseball. But oh, yeah, he's also incredibly fast. So if he could play the field, if they did let him play the field more often, then he'd probably be playing center field because he's just that ridiculously athletic. The most insane athlete in baseball is just getting better and better and better. And that does not prove good for the Rangers. It's just not. I think he might end up being on the mound in that Sunday game. The Rangers will be really lucky if they get to avoid facing him as a pitcher, because this year he is miles and miles better than he was as a pitcher last year. He has been able to pitch more innings. He's got more starts, and he's been more effective when he's doing it. Last year he had 23 starts and 130 innings and 156 strikeouts. This year he's got 27 starts, 161 innings, and 213 strikeouts. Yeah, 213 in 160 innings. That's nuts. Also, the guy's playing pretty much every day as a DH. That's just super nuts. Oh, and last year when he had a 3.18 ERA, and I want to say that he got some Cy Young votes. There's too many. There's not enough slots for him to get to show how much he was. How many awards he was getting votes for, because he's just that stupid good. But yeah, he's even better as a pitcher this year because he's got a 2.35 ERA in those 160 innings. It's just nuts. Absolutely bonkers that this is a real human being. Let me go back and look at the Cy Young voting because I feel like he had to get some. Nope, not a single vote. Not a single Cy Young vote. Well, he'll be getting them this year. He will absolutely be getting those Cy Young votes this year. I'm not sure if he's in the has got the innings to qualify for the league leaders, but I'm pretty sure he does because there have been so few this year. There's so few pitchers that are pitching as deep into games and as often this year. But 160 innings, that is not quite what Martin Perez has done. I don't think it's top 10 in baseball, but he is definitely way up there. Yeah, he is qualifying for those leaders in adjusted ERA plus. He's at 172, which in the American League is just behind Justin Verlander at 215 and Dylan Cease of the White Sox at 194. He has been absolutely bonkers good. He's second in WAR for pitchers. For WAR in total, Aaron Judge is ahead of him. I don't know how. I think it's just because he's a DH. Ohtani, that is, because he can't provide the defensive value of that WAR formula, so it doesn't really properly catalog how great he is. By the way, Marcus Semien at 5.8 WAR, which I don't think has gone up with those 2 home runs, or maybe went back down and then back up with the 2 home run game that he had last night. He is 6th in the American League in baseball reference WAR. Oh, and Mike Trout, who has missed a whole bunch of time this year, yeah, he's 9th at 5.6. Just barely behind Marcus Semien, who's played all but 1 game this season, and that was just to get him a reset. Absolutely ridiculously freakish team. And, the Angels are not in the playoff chase. They are, let me go double check the standings, because I believe, they are ahead of the Rangers. They're going to finish the Rangers, unless they can sweep this series and probably win at least three out of 4 games. They are right now 3.5 games behind the Angels for 3rd place in the AL West. I know I said at the beginning of the season that would have been a bonus for the Rangers, because if they were in 3rd place, they would have 70 wins. They're not. That would be exactly a 10-win improvement at the very worst. Right now, the Angels have 70 wins. The Rangers have 66. So it seems like the Rangers are not going to finish above the Angels because they don't have Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani. But the pitching has always been a problem for this Angels team. No matter who they spent on the big free agents, there have been a lot of free agent signings and whiffs. Old straight edge racer, old CJ was not quite as effective for them as he was for the Rangers. Josh Hamilton, same thing there. Anthony Rendon has not been healthy at all, and he's got 45 games this year and a 707 OPS before suffering an injury that has kept him out for most of the season. But they had some depth of offense this year. They had Taylor Ward had a breakout year, kind of fell off in the back half. Luis Rengifo was really solid for them at second base, but they've also got some injuries at first base and shortstop, well, and at third base as well. Jared Walsh is on the 60-day IL. Same with their shortstop, Andrew Velasquez, who has been mostly solid defensively this season. Offensively, not providing a whole lot of value there. But the pitching even took a step forward this year. Obviously, it's led by Shohei Ohtani, but it's Patrick Sandoval, the 25-year-old lefty, has a 3.03 ERA in 142 and two-thirds innings this year. They had Reed Detmers, who also took a huge step forward, had that no-hitter. He is also a lefty. He was really young, 22 years old. I think I just said that like 3 seconds ago. But he's got a sub-4 ERA. Jose Suarez, another young lefty, 24 years old, and a 4.06 ERA in 102 innings. He hasn't been able to pitch as many innings as they would have liked. Lorenzen has been fine as a starter. 91 innings, 4.50 ERA, and Syndergaard has kind of been a disappointment. Only pitched in 15 games this year, 80 innings, 3.83 ERA. I think they kind of expected that with him coming off of the Tommy John surgery, but the bullpen has just been kind of an absolute mess. Jimmy Herget, the former Ranger great, has been probably their most effective reliever this season. He is the only one of their most used bullpen pitchers with over 35 games that has a sub 3 ERA. He is at 2.3 in 47 games, 66 and two-thirds innings. Their big, highly paid closer, Raisel Iglesias, has a 4.04 ERA, 16 saves in 35 and two-thirds innings this year, and 5 home runs. So a home run every 7 innings. Has been, fine. He's been effective when he's been able to actually be on the field. An ERA plus of just over 100 at 101. The FIP is pretty darn good, but Aaron Loop has not been great out of the bullpen. Ryan Tepera has been mediocre, and Jose Quijada, I believe that's how you pronounce it, out of the bullpen has also been just fine as their resident lefty along with Aaron Loop. But they just have not been able to find ways to win games. Their offense has been basically just the Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani show, with limited guest star appearances from Taylor Ward, but the rest of them have just not quite lived up to it. Injuries for the entire infield pretty much outside of Rengifo, and Joe Adell not quite living up to what they thought he might be offensively. He has had his fair share of problems defensively. I mean, we saw him give up 2 goofy home runs to the Rangers that bounced in and out of his glove. I believe in 2020 was when that was one of his first games at the major league level. I think he did it again in left field in Anaheim this year, if I'm remembering correctly. I know he's done it at least one more time, and I'm pretty sure it was against the Rangers, and he's only got a 613 OPS. He was a guy who mashed at every single level he played at, then got to the big leagues and struggled. Again, the divide between the minor leagues and the major leagues right now is as big as it's ever been. So we're seeing a lot of these guys, like we just talked about Kelnick, who was a really talented minor league player who struggled once he got to the big leagues. Joe Adell is the same way, and they traded away Brandon Marsh at midseason because the Philadelphia Phillies needed one competent defender, and they got it in Brandon Marsh. But still, really kind of head-scratching. This team has not quite lived up to the hype with the amount of success they've had on the pitching side, how well they started off. I mean, that Mike Trout injury really, really did them in. Him being back has not really fixed everything in the way they would hoped, but still, I think they might be a little bit more dangerous than we give them credit for next year. But then again, they're also the Angels, so they might get snake bitten by injuries and mystery nonsense. And this Mike Trout back thing is not going away. So it's not going to end his career, but it's definitely going to limit his games, which is a darn shame for baseball. But the Rangers are going to get to see him and Shohei Ohtani and maybe get some wins. It's always fun playing against the Angels, seeing those 2 generational talents and still seeing the Rangers win in a very, very pretty stadium in Anaheim. That's going to do it for this week's editions of Locked On Rangers. I'll be back on Monday recapping this weekend series and anything that's going on. Hopefully we can see Corey Seager back in action this weekend. And for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully. He brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues, both past and present. It is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Thank you all so much for listening, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.